Video is to be used for educational purposes only.
Welcome to the Dallas Severely Underfunded Museum of History. My name is Bob Ross. I am the museum curator. We are pleased to welcome our greatest contributors and donators to our new Francis Scott Key exhibit. Now, with your donations of $10 each, we were able to go to Kinko's and photocopy some nice artifacts of Francis Scott Key. Francis Scott Key was a very interesting person. As you know, Francis Scott Key wrote the Star-Spangled Banner during the attack on Fort McHenry. He was taken prisoner for overhearing too much of the battle plans and had to sit on a ship with no sails while the fort was bombed in ruins. Key waited for morning to see the damage that had been done. When morning came, Key looked upon the fort to see the flag still waving proudly, undamaged by the battle. He knew they had won. This inspired him to write with great patriotic feelings, which helped him to write the Star-Spangled Banner. I am now pleased to introduce to you the 8 artifacts your generous donations allowed us to purchase. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a portrait of Francis Scott Key, painted by Charles Willson Peale in 1803. Key was known to be a religious man. He even considered giving up the practice of law to be a minister, but by his wife's decision, he stayed as a lawyer. Instead, he decided to be involved in the Episcopal Church. Due to his religious beliefs, he was opposed to the War of 1812, but did serve in a brief time for Georgetown Artillery in 1813. This is a copy of the flag of 1812. Mary Young Pickersgill, a Baltimore widow who had experience making ship flags and explained that they wanted a United States flag that measured 30 feet by 42 feet. She agreed to do the job. With the help of her 13-year-old daughter, Caroline, Miss Pickersgill spent several weeks measuring, cutting, and sewing the 15 stars and stripes. When the time came to sew the elements of the flag together, they realized that their house was not large enough. Miss Pickersgill thus asked the owners of the nearby Claggins Brewery for permission to assemble the flag on the building's floor during evening hours. He agreed, and the women worked by candlelight to finish it. Once completed, the flag which delivered to the committee, and Miss Pickersgill was paid $405.90. This great flag flew over Fort McHenry while it was under attack. It was the largest flag in the U.S. and now resides in a better-funded museum named the Smithsonian. It is displayed behind a curtain to protect it from liquid and camera flashes. The real flag, undamaged by the attack, but later damaged by natural causes such as dust, inspired Francis Scott Key to write the poem that would later become the national anthem, Star-Spangled Banner. Let's move on to the next item. The HMS Tonnant was commissioned in 1801 and completed in Bombay dockyards in 1810. It had the distinction of being the first Royal Navy ship built outside Britain. HMS Tonnant, an Indian teakwood vessel, was the first ship to be launched from Duncan Dock. This was also the first ship commissioned in the Royal Navy from India. The Star-Spangled Banner, national anthem of USA, was composed on board this ship in 1814 by Francis Scott Key in Baltimore Harbor, where he was prisoner of the British board the ship. The morning after the battle, Francis Scott Key awoke to see the flag still waving over Fort McHenry. This filled with a heart full of pride. Francis Scott Key took out a letter he was writing to his brother from his pocket and started writing several verses on the back. Once he was released from the HMS Tonnant, he took a boat back to Baltimore, where he stayed in a hotel. There he finished up the poem and entitled it The Defense of Fort McHenry. Later, it was turned into our national anthem, and they changed the name officially to the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1996, there was an initiative to restore the Francis Scott Key Memorial. Members of the Bolton Hill neighborhood commenced a campaign to restore the city-owned Key Monument, which had become a neighborhood eyesore. The pool was filled with trash, one of the boat's oars was missing, and green stains from bronze corrosion marred with the white marble. The bronze figures and reliefs were suffering from exposure to the elements, with the once gleaming Columbia now covered with algae and black crust. They failed to raise enough money but money was later funded in the summer of 1988 by the Save Outdoor Sculpture, an initiative of heritage preservation and the National Museum of American Art, and the park was renewed in 1999. This was the quill that was aboard the HMS Tonnant, which Francis Scott Key used to write the Star-Spangled Banner. Did he? Historians have debated in the past over the fact that this could possibly be Abraham Lincoln's quill that he used to write the Emancipation Proclamation. But our research department,
You guys have research departments?
yes, the people at Michaels,
Oh, at Michael's.
has concluded that it is, in fact, the actual pen Francis Scott Key used to write the Star-Spangled Banner. This is Francis Scott Key's wedding ring. He was married to Mary Lloyd in 1802. The marriage was a happy one, and their personalities complemented each other, and together they had 11 children. Their children are as follows: Elizabeth Phoebe, nicknamed Lizzie for her horrible eczema; Maria Lloyd, Francis Scott, Anna Arnold, Edward Lloyd, Daniel Murray, Philip Barton Key, Ellen Lloyd, Mary Alicia Lloyd Nevins, Charles Henry, and my great-great-great-great-grandfather, John Ross. Yes, I am, in fact, related to Francis Scott Key. Many of his children grew up and followed in his footsteps. Several even became lawyers. I'd like to thank you all for coming to my exhibit, and I'd like to open the floor for some questions.
The cold side of life. What? Oh, the first one?
Yeah.
Was the poem made into a song before or after he died?
It was made after he died.
Oh,
So,
really?
yes, he never got to see his song become a national anthem.
How tragic. The second one? At what age did he marry his wife Mary?
He married her at age 23 while she was still 18.
Right.
What happened to Dr. Beans after he was rescued from the Tonnant?
Dr. Beans served in a hospital during the Battle of Washington, D.C. in 1814. He was one of the founders of what would become the State Medical Board. He posted upon for a lottery to build public schools and libraries. I have one last exhibit to show you. Well, actually, I'd like to play it for you. And now, the Star-Spangled Banner by Francis Scott Key.